interesting man, or a very cultured woman, as the case might be. When the man arrived without his interest, or the woman without her culture, no one was disappointed, for no one had expected anything. The conventions had been observed, and that was all that mattered. Dinner at Galvin House was rather a dismal affair. The separate tables heresy, advocated by a progressive-minded guest, had been once and for all discouraged by Miss Wangle, who announced that if separate tables were introduced, she, for one, would not stay. "I remember the dear bishop once saying to me," she remarked, "My dear, if people can't say what they have to say at a large table and in the hearing of others, then let it for ever remain unsaid." "But if someone's dress is awry, or the hair is not on straight, would you announce the fact to the whole table?" Patricia had questioned with an innocence that was a little overdone. Miss Wangle had glared, for she wore the most obvious auburn wig, which failed to convince anyone, and served only to enhance the pallor of her sharp features. In consequence of the table arrangements, conversation during mealtimes was general and dull. Mr. Bolton joked, Miss Wangle poured vinegar on oily waters, Mrs. Mosscrop Smythe dripped with the oil of forbearance, Mr. Cordell ate noisily, Miss Sickham simpered, and Mrs. Craske-Morton strove to appear a real hostess entertaining real guests, without the damning prefix paying. The remaining guests, there were usually about 25, looked as they felt they ought to look, and never failed to show a befitting reverence for Miss Wangle's ecclesiastical relic, for it was Miss Wangle who issued the social birth certificates at Galvin House. That evening Patricia was silent. Mr. Bolton endeavoured to draw her out, but failed. As a rule, she was the first to laugh at his jokes, in order to encourage the poor little man, as she expressed it. For a man who is fat and bald and a bachelor, and thinks he is a humorist, wants all the pity that the world can lavish upon him. Patricia glanced round the table, from Miss Wangle, lean as a winter wolf, to Mrs. Mosscrop Smythe, fair, chubby and faded, and on to Mr. Cordell, lantern-jawed and ravenous. Were they not all lonely, and left of God? Patricia asked herself, and yet 2 of these solitary souls had dared to pity her, Patricia Brent. At least she had something they did not possess, youth. The more she thought of the words that had drifted to her through the half-closed door of the lounge, the more humiliating they appeared. Her day had been particularly trying, and she was tired. She was in a mood to see a cyclone in a zephyr, and in a ripple a gigantic wave. She looked about her once more. What a fate to be cast among such people! The table appointments seemed more than usually irritating that evening. The base metal that peeped slyly through the silver of the forks and spoons, the tapering knives, victims of much cleaning, with their yellow handles, the salt cellars, the mustard, browning with 3 days' age. Mustard was replenished on Sundays only. The anemic ferns in artistic pots, every defect seemed emphasized. How she hated it! But most of all the many-shaped and multicoloured napkin rings, at Galvin House known as serviette rings. Variety was necessary to ensure each guest's personal interest in one particular napkin. Did they ever get mixed? Patricia shuddered at the thought. At the end of the week a serviette had become a sort of gastronomic diary. By Saturday evening, new serviettes were served out on Sunday at luncheon. The square of grey-white fabric had many things recorded upon it, but above all, like a monarch dominating his subjects, was the ineradicable aroma of Monday's kipper. On this particular evening Galvin House seemed more than ever grey and depressing. Patricia found herself wondering if God had really made all these people in his own image. They seemed so petty, so ungodlike. The way they regarded their food as it was handed to them suggested that they were forever engaged in a comparison of what they paid with what they received. Did God make people in his own image and then leave the rest to them? Was that where free will came in? Lonely! The word seemed to crash in upon her thoughts with explosive force. Someone had used it, whom she did not know, or in what relation. It brought her back to earth and Galvin House. Lonely, that was at the root of her depression. She was an object of pity among her fellow boarders. It was intolerable. She understood why girls did things to escape from such surroundings and such fox pity. Had she been a domestic servant, she could have hired a soldier, that is, before the war. Had she been